Hello and welcome to Raising Those Spirits. I'm Steve,
And I'm Sam.
and we're revisiting an '80s childhood classic this week.
Oh yeah, it was one of my favorites. I was a bit apprehensive about revisiting it because I have like strong, earful memories of this movie. I'm really glad that we ended up watching it.
Yeah, I've been in the same boat where I have like visceral memories of this movie. I feel like it was like a cornerstone of my childhood, so revisiting it was like, "Oh, this could be really bad." But parts of it live rent free in my mind. So like
Seriously.
I haven't watched it in well over 25 years. Uh
Mhm.
so it was a trip to go back. I'm glad we finally did it. I was very worried, much like you.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to get into it.
But
But we have our regular house segments first.
yeah, you gotta wait. That's just a teaser, everyone. We're
Teaser.
gonna edge you on Little Monsters.
Oh my god. This
No,
episode is going to be savage.
it is. It's going to be very
Huh?
savage. I love it.
Huh?
This
That
no,
was a little
A
little pun for you.
little pre spoiler into Little Monsters. No matter what I say on this, it's probably better language than in this children's movie.
Oh my god, there was so much. Oh, we're
There's
gonna get
so
into it.
much swearing. We'll get into it.
I was like, how? I was like, how was I allowed to watch
This
this
movie
movie
was
as a child?
PG, and I looked it up. PG-13 had been a thing for 5 years. I don't know how they got a PG. We'll get to
Oh
it,
my god.
but
We'll get
oh
to it.
my god, I I just needed to get that out there. Okay.
I have so many. I didn't even take notes. I didn't need to. I have so many thoughts about this movie.
Yeah.
So many thoughts.
I took notes just for like specific scenes for the most part, so I could be like, "How about this?"
How about Home Alone, brother,
Oh my God,
in this
yeah,
movie?
so many big names in that Home Alone villain.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh my
Yeah,
god, there's multiple Home Alone people in this.
multiple Home
I
Alone
was thinking
people
that
in this.
Daniel Stern, again, we'll get into it. Daniel Stern being the voice of adult Kevin Arnold.
Yes, I was gonna mention that too. They had two Wonder Years people, two Home Alone people. We're getting too deep.
We'll get into it. Okay, okay. What have you been up or what have I been up to? What have we been up to?
Okay, so I had a journey on Sunday. So those of you who are not friends with Sam, uh, don't know, but Sam likes to post him cooking his Sunday meals,
I
and
do that.
they're great. It's
True.
an experience. I almost actually like did it to you this week. I made a jambalaya.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I made a big jambalaya. I threw in chicken like drumsticks. I threw in fresh
hmm
shrimp. I had
hmm
chorizo
hmm
sausage in there. I had like this big dinner planned. And so I'm doing this. This is like an afternoon. And my wife looks at me at like as I've got this like prepped basically. And she's like, "It's Super Bowl Sunday." And I was just like, "What? Really?" And my wife and I don't watch football, but we always go big on the food for Super Bowl Sunday. And then we watch like trashy movies or we play a game or whatever.
Sure.
And I
A
was like,
non Super Bowl party.
"Yeah." And I'm like, "I have this giant jambalaya that I make a jambalaya." And so I was like, "All right, I'll make the jambalaya and it'll just be lunches this week." But I don't have like food prepped for Super Bowl Sunday. So now at like 1 o'clock on Super Bowl Sunday, I have to go to the food store and deal with that shenanigans. And so I went to the food store and I bought all the stuff I was gonna make. And I
hmm
made it, and we had like a delicious Super Bowl spread for dinner, and then I had this really good jambalaya that I made that we've been having for lunches. And then yesterday, Sam, after all of this
hmm
is said and done, after my entire Sunday has basically become dedicated to cooking,
hmm
my wife goes, So I messed up. Super Bowl's next Sunday.
I'm about to say. I was like, I don't think that was true.
It wasn't.
Because no, you know what's funny? My wife did the same thing. She was like, the Super Bowl's today. I was like, it is, and then she
Same.
looked it up. She's like, oh no, it's next weekend.
My wife did not look it up, and I took her word and just stopped everything I was doing. So I've also been like, I made a lot. I have leftover Super Bowl food too, and now I still have to do this next week. Like, I have beer cheese, I have like sausage roll ups, I have all of this other stuff still.
Oh man, if my parents weren't in town, I might be going to your house.
Yeah, we 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 eat like we're 10 years younger. I had some leftover chorizo from the jambalaya, and I
Hmm.
made what I'm calling pork and bean nachos, where it's chorizo sausage and refried beans and jalapenos on top of the nachos.
Oh, that sounds great.
Oh my god, it was so good. I was like, I'm never making other nachos. Uh, it was real good. I've
Oh,
never
nice.
had
I got a bunch of chorizo in my freezer. My
yeah.
parents are coming over this weekend, and my dad's bringing a big pile of tamales. Every
Ooh.
Mexican parent travels with just a sack of tamales. It's a cultural thing.
Like, I would say probably 4 or 5 years ago now, I bought tons of corn husks with the intention to start being a guy who makes tamales, and I've never ever opened those corn husks.
They're still good. They don't go bad.
Yeah,
I got a sack of corn husks. Last time I made tamales was probably like a year ago.
yeah. Well, I'm
Um,
always
they don't
like,
go bad.
traditionally, historically, they were made with turkey, so like that's what I was gonna start doing after like Thanksgiving and stuff with leftovers,
Mhm.
and I just never remember to. So, but
It's an
that's
undertaking. I mean, like it's like a day. It's you got to dedicate a day to it, but then you never run out of
yeah.
tamales.
Then you just freeze them.
Yeah, I
Like
think I was still finding tamales in the back of I think I was still finding tamales that my grandmother made in the back of my parents' freezer years after she had passed away.
I also had to clean out my freezer to make room for all of this. So like my spooky story recently is that I wasted an entire Sunday
The spooky story is how your life ticks away
for
uncontrollably.
no reason. Sometimes I also made a peanut butter pie, which I haven't made in 20
Oh, that
years.
sounds good.
Oh my god, it was so good. I've been telling Petra about it for 18 years. And she was always like, yeah, 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 I'm not like a big peanut butter person. And she's eaten it like every single night this week. So that's what I've been up to.
Delicious.
A lot more
Okay.
cooking than I intended.
Well, I'll tell you, I got my daughter out to Newberry Comics, which is a chain around here.
We have one down by us too. It's my comic shop.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Well, those who don't know, it's basically a nerd bait store. Comic books, vinyl records, fandom stuff, like all sorts of action figures. And I have a small collection of Funko Pops. I used to collect Funko Pops pretty regularly, but I wasn't doing it with any sort of focus, so I stopped because I was just spending too much money on it. I was like, I don't need to spend $10 on a nickel's worth of plastic. But every now and then I still like to peruse the Funko Pops. And my daughter knows I have a few, and she's wanted to start collecting some. We got her one from our local comic book store, which was like Matthew McConaughey from The Dark Tower, that movie that bombed pretty spectacularly. But she liked the look of this used Matthew McConaughey Funko Pop, who now lives in her bedroom, sitting next to a My Little Pony. But I got her to Newberry Comics over the weekend. It was her first trip to the mall since pre-COVID, just because I needed to get her out of the house because we had a long string of bad weather. And you should have seen the look on her face when she saw the wall of Funko Pops. She was like, "This is it. There's every character I've ever known is a toy here." And she was like, "Can I get these?" And I was like, "No, you already picked out a stuffed animal at a different store. You're not getting another toy. I brought you here to torture you."
phenomenal.
Yeah, that was a good parenting moment on my part. but she did pick out a Valentine's present for my wife, which so that was nice. It was a
Oh,
fun little mall trip with my daughter.
that's nice. So, drinks. I made a drink this week.
What was it? At
My initial plan had been to find a Monster Energy
oh,
drink. You know what I mean? Like a cocktail made out of a Monster Energy drink. Because we're doing Little Monsters. I was going to stay on Monster theme. The main monster in Little Monsters is blue. There are several blue monsters. And then I was like, I don't want to. We record after 8 p.m. I can't be
what's that
drinking.
happening?
I have a big board meeting tomorrow. I can't be up till 11 o'clock because I drank a monster. So, what I did, I created something I've called the Monsterita. It, so, I went to Stop and Shop. And you know those like frozen juice concentrates you can buy?
Sure.
I bought a limeade one. And the recipe on the limeade canister said you have to pour the container into like a jug, and then fill the container 3 1/3 times with water and stir it. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. So I poured it into the blender. I put 2 containers of water in, one of ice, and then that last third I completely filled with tequila.
Okay.
And then I put it in the blender, and the ice got it nice and like frosty, and there was like the ice chips. And then I actually put the whole blender in the freezer because I had recently cleaned it out, and got it like nice and like iced up. And it was a really good bright green margarita. So,
Nice. All
and
right, that sounds good.
yeah, and it keeps because you just put it in the freezer. And when you're ready to have more, you take it out, throw it on the blender. It turns it into a slushy. Do recommend.
All right. I do not recommend my drink. I looked online for a Fred Savage themed cocktail. It turns out there's a couple of different recipes for Fred Savage cocktails. Here's the one that I picked. It is Bacardi rum, Jack Daniels, amaretto, beer, and Coke for color. And the recipe went: put the rum in Jack in glass, then fill with beer, very, very little Coke, and drop amaretto into the glass and chug. In 10 minutes, night is over. And that was verbatim of how the recipe was written. I was like, I'll give this a try. I went to the liquor store and I was like, I'm gonna re-up on my my liquor. I did a big liquor shopping trip because I was like, I want to be able to make a variety of drinks, including the Fred Savage. And I poured myself a big glass of Fred Savage to sit down and watch Little Monsters the other night. And I will tell you, I hated this drink. Don't make this drink. Do not drink it. It was a mistake. I regret.
Okay, so that sounds awful. And
Yeah, it sounded bad.
when
It
you
tasted bad.
sent it to me, I looked at it and was like, I'm so glad you found this so I don't have to do it. But then on a lark, I Googled it to look it up again because I was like thinking about it. And there is an actual cocktail called the Fred Savage that looks delicious.
Yeah, there was another one that had stuff I just didn't have on hand and wasn't about to buy. I also didn't end up making that milk punch I was talking about last week. This time
Not,
I had the stuff to
not
make it, I just
surprised.
didn't have the room in my fridge.
Yeah, that's fair. So the
I was
official Fred Savage cocktail has
official. Let's call Fred Savage and let him judge.
it
Maybe he wrote
is
this one.
Tanqueray gin, grapefruit vinegar, red cherry jam, dry vermouth, and ginger. I don't know what that has to do with Fred Savage
Oh,
or
and it was
who
all stuff.
has
Yeah,
any of those things in their
who's got
house.
grapefruit vinegar? Like that's what I was thinking. I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna get my hands on grapefruit vinegar from a one drink.
Yeah.
It's like everything that's at least in the terrible one I found is stuff that I could keep in the house. Like, oh yeah, Bacardi, fine. I already had Jack Daniels. I didn't have amaretto, but it comes up in so many cocktails. I was like, oh, I might as well get some.
Yeah.
I did not like it.
Oh,
My
it
wife was,
is. It's more of a Christmas thing.
yeah, my wife was like, if you hate that amaretto, and she was pretty sure that I would. She was like, her mother drinks it, so I might just gift my mother-in-law an almost full bottle of amaretto. Not a
Probably for
fan.
the best.
Yeah, get
I
that out of my liquor cabinet.
I inherited a lot of liquors that I never would have otherwise stocked when my father died and I was cleaning out his liquor cabinet. And
Mm.
I've had like a quarter full bottle of amaretto for almost a decade now. I use it that infrequently. Like, I did not get this bottle full, and it is still in my liquor cabinet.
It's a boomer drink.
It is. It is absolutely a boomer.
Sorry, boomers.
Sorry,
Take that,
boomers.
my
Speaking
parents.
of boomers, Little Monsters had some serious boomer parents.
Oh my god, Daniel Stern and I don't remember the mom's name.
Oh,
Hold on.
hold on. I have it written down.
Looking her
She
up.
is the villain in Major League.
Yeah, Margaret
Margaret
Ton.
Whitten.
I don't.
Yeah.
Margaret Whitten.
Yeah, so I was looking at her and I was like, who are you? I don't just remember you because I've seen Little Monsters 100 times. And then I looked her up and I was like, oh my god, you're the owner of the Cubs in Major League. It's so weird to see you playing a parent after all that.
All right, so let's talk about the premise of Little Monsters before we get into even actors and the cast. Let's talk about the basic
The
premise of
basic
this
plot of
movie.
this movie.
Basic plot of this movie, and this movie is what is it? It's Monsters Inc. plus I would say Nightbreed. Have you ever seen Nightbreed?
Yes, it is you're right. It is both of those things.
Yeah, and this actually came out before Nightbreed. Um, which again, like, whoa, talk about that. Nightbreed is probably more obscure than Little Monsters, but
No,
it is.
Nightbreed has a TV show now.
Oh, that's right. I heard about that. What channel is that on?
Oh god, I'll Google that. You talk.
Okay, so Little Monsters. The premise: our main character, Fred Savage. His character's name is Brian. I'm just gonna call him Fred Savage. Him and his family, including his little brother, played by his real life little brother Ben Savage, um, move to a new house, and they are in constant fear of the monster under the bed, which Fred Savage attempts to prove is not real, to discover the monster under the bed is real. It is Howie Mandel, one of our very favorite 1990s, 1980s actors, as Maurice. Maurice being a blue punk rock looking monster, complete with mohawk and leather jacket. Pretty much channeling Beetlejuice. This movie was about a year after Beetlejuice, and I think he was an attempt at being kind of a kid friendly, quote unquote,
Oh,
Beetlejuice.
he was so much less kid friendly than Beetlejuice.
Yeah, but yeah, that's it. It's like it felt like they were going for like, oh, this is Beetlejuice, but for kids, before the Beetlejuice cartoon came out. And it's like, but movie is so messed up.
Yeah,
So Maurice, our monster, takes Fred Savage into the monster world underneath the bed. Again, that's where it's sort of like Monsters Inc.
because he
And the monster
manages.
world is so creepy.
Yes, so he manages to catch Maurice, which no one's ever been able to do. So, like, as a reward, he brings him down because the where it differs from Monsters Inc. is they're not afraid of the children at all.
Oh no, they're into bringing the kids in.
Yeah, like if you can prove yourself, you're in. You get a ticket to Monster World.
And as Fred Savage would learn through the course of the film, like if you spend too much time in Monster World, well,
You can never leave.
you become a monster too.
Which is the
That's where the monsters come
concept
from.
of a Richard Coville book that we've discussed covering on this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's the one where there's like the monster under the kid's bed and it finally gets him And then like the only way he can he can only get out after like 20 years of service as a monster himself or something like that.
Oh, very similar then.
Yeah,
Practically the same.
practically the same. I want to cover that eventually when we do Bruce Coville's Book of Nightmares or whatever.
Mhm. This is a straight up body horror flick.
Yeah.
There's there's so many like elements of other movies. This is I mean, again, like it feels like it's drawing from movies that actually came out before. So I would
It
say there's a
influenced
lot
a
of
lot of
Beetlejuice.
it influenced a lot of movies too.
Yeah, there's a lot of Beetlejuice, and it's about a year after Beetlejuice, so that makes sense. Feels like maybe they were trying to like ride some of that success with the sort of weird monster underworld. There's a lot of Monsters Inc., which came much later, but I feel like whoever was making Monsters Inc. had to be at least somewhat aware of Little Monsters. There's a ton of Nightbreed, which
Coming
again,
to
this is
sci-fi.
pre-Nightbreed. Yeah, pre-Nightbreed, but like really, it feels like Nightbreed was almost like the adult version of Little Monsters. If you haven't seen Nightbreed and you want to check out like a really super weird horror flick, check out Nightbreed. I'm not even going to try describing it, but
If
like
it's like
adult Little Monsters.
it's like Clive Barker watched this and was like, I could work with that.
But
Like
yeah, I was going to say there feels like there's a lot of Hellraiser here too with the body horror.
so much body
So
horror.
yeah, it feels like Clive Barker for kids. That's how I would describe this movie. Yes. Little Monsters is a Clyde Barker flick for children. But at the same time, I not to bury the lead, I would not let my kid watch this. This movie would freak my kid out.
I
Because it freaked me out watching it as an adult.
I don't understand how I loved this movie so much as a child. Like I wasn't like an easily freaked out kid, but like this is a freaky movie. And it
This is
just
scary. Monster designs. I mean, the monster designs
were
are
great, but like
they're
not for
they're
kids.
gruesome. No, not for kids. There's a lot of one of the conceits of this movie is if the monsters get caught by light, they disappear. Like their bodies disappear and they become just their clothes, but they still have some autonomy over their
Facility.
clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they become basically like clothing puppets. And again, another thing this I feel like drew from was Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. Another movie we should talk about this show on the show eventually. Um, if you've seen Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, there's this whole set piece in that film, which is the old Angela Lansbury Disney witch movie, uh, where they bring a bunch of clothing to life as like clothing puppets, and it is a terrifying sequence in an otherwise not terrifying movie. And there's a lot of that in this too. There's there's so much going on in this movie.
There are some really like messed up looking monsters too. Like there's this one scene where all the monsters are trying to scare a baby.
Oh
And
my god.
yeah, I was just like, this is like again the design that went into some of these monsters is great, but there was like the pumpkin head guy and stuff. I was just like, holy crap!
Yeah, the
Like
Pumpkinhead was scary. What about there was this one monster where it was a little kid. A lot of the monsters are
child
kids
sized.
because they all start one of the things is like you start as a child and as you get stuck in this monster world, I guess you become more monstrous over time.
And then if you're
Uh
ever exposed to light, you morph even more into a monster. So
right.
like
So the beginning of the movie,
Yeah,
yeah.
Howie Mandel
Oh no, go ahead.
gets hit by light because of Fred Savage catching him, and he grows a pair of horns that he has for the rest of the movie. Like that's how he gets his horns.
Yeah. Um so there's this one monster, it's a little kid with like four
Oh,
arms.
I had forgotten about him, and the second I saw him, like I was five again. Like, oh god.
Yeah, again, it's really creepy because they're wearing this kind of like period clothing. It looks like the kid was probably been trapped there since like the 40s or 50s or something. But still, the body of a child gets its head ripped off and like replaced with a stuffed animal by one of the other monsters. And
Also,
then the next time you see this character, they just have a stuffed animal head.
Also, he has like the classic Macaulay Culkin Home Alone hands on the cheeks thing.
Oh yeah.
Permanently. They're stuck there. But then he has two other arms with other hands that are almost seeming like they're constantly trying to pry the other hands off of his face, which has like just horrifying connotations.
Right. So again, like we've barely scratched the surface of this movie, but I can say immediately I would not feel good about showing this to my 4-year-old. And I was 4 when we were 4 when this movie came out.
Yeah.
And I feel like I saw it when it was new. I wonder if they
Yes,
toned
we
it down for
rented this.
TV.
We rented this.
You rented it? You had it on VHS.
Yeah, we had it on VHS, and like, yeah, no, like, and like, there's a scene where Howie Mandel turns his hand into like a dog to eat a kid's homework, and the effect and like the the special effects are amazing. It's like a dog shark hybrid, but it's terrifying. It was even too much for me as an adult. I was like, that looks terrifying.
I thought it looked a little penisy.
Well, that's where I'm like, it's like a shark dog mixture because it doesn't have eyes. It just has like the
No.
mouth and the teeth and like the ridge. And like, I was just like, what the? Why is this in a kids' movie? It's It kind of looks like the alien in Alien after like when it's in its chest burster phase.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
And just like things like that where I was just like this is I don't remember this being genuinely scary. Maybe it's cuz it's offset by all the sex humor and swearing, but a lot of sex humor for a kids movie.
Yeah, there is a lot. Like they say some stuff that again is like inappropriate. It's like, oh, I guess this was somehow just okay for children in the 1980s when this came out.
Yeah, like there's this scene where a monster girl is like checking out Fred Savage and Howie Mandel pantses him and she's just like leering at him and she goes, "Nice ass." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, weird for a kids movie. Really weird for a kids movie."
No, it
Um
made me very uncomfortable. That line in particular, I was just like, that makes me uncomfortable. And I think, like, did I always associate this with like sort of like Labyrinth or something? It's just like I rewatched Labyrinth a couple of weeks ago because it was on TV, and that movie is still delightful. And this, even though again I would say it and Labyrinth share a lot of DNA, this movie is not delightful. This movie is horrifying. Fred Savage really like befriends Maurice pretty quickly. Like Fred Savage's family is going through a lot of tough times. As you know, it's eventually revealed that his parents are planning on getting a divorce. Um, so him and Maurice end up becoming buddies because he needs somebody to talk to. But I was like, Maurice is not delightful. Maurice is terrifying and frustrating and not really good to be around. Don't identify with him.
yeah, Maurice is
And then of course like
a toxic influence on this kid's life that he uses to act out. And
yeah.
like even as a kid, I thought Maurice was too much. And like I grew up in a similar house to Fred Savage.
Mhm.
Um so as a kid, like I really related to that part of the movie with like the bad home life. And
Yeah.
even with that, I was like, Maurice is a no go. Like I would not, even as a little kid, I was like, I don't know about Maurice. I don't know if I'd like things are bad here, but I don't know if I would jump into that. This guy is a
You know,
lot.
yeah, he's a lot. He's way too much. It's like if the genie from Aladdin, yeah, he lands somewhere like between the genie from Aladdin and Beetlejuice from Beetlejuice, but then also is just terrible.
And potentially like a registered sex offender or something. I don't
I
know.
wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
He's spending way too much time with, with the kid.
And just like, yeah, like he
Um,
brings up the Playboy channel as like things they can do when like their parents aren't around, and I was like, this kid is like 13. You're over 200. You should probably not be watching porn with him. You probably shouldn't even be talking about the Playboy channel in a kids movie, honestly. Um
no,
like
this was one where every time Daniel Stern, Daniel Stern is the dad, and he's always really, he's always angry at Fred Savage because he's like, oh, you left the TV. He's like, oh, you need to clean the house, you need to do things because he thinks the terrible things that Maurice are doing are things that Fred Savage is doing. And he's punishing Fred Savage. And now I identify more with Daniel Stern's character in this movie than I do Fred Savage's. And I'm like, oh no, he's being pretty reasonable,
yeah,
all
that's
told.
that's the problem with a lot of these. Like as a kid, you're like, "Oh, he's so rotten." And I'm like, he's really just trying to keep Fred Savage busy so that he can't do this other bullshit. Like he's
Yeah.
just like the kid clearly has too much time and energy. I'll put him to work around the house. Um,
Daniel
yeah.
Stern would have been about 32 when this movie came out. He was born in 57, so 57, 78, 77, 80. Yeah, so Daniel Stern was younger than us when this movie came out.
He was
He
probably
looked good.
30 when they filmed it. Yeah.
Yeah, he would have been 31, probably about 30, 31 when they filmed it. He looked pretty good. I was just like, Daniel Stern, okay, he was a handsome young man. He reminded me a lot of E.F. Schreiber, another handsome Jewish actor. Um, yeah, I absolutely 100% identified more with Daniel Stern. Again, now being a few years older than he was when this movie came out, and thinking, yeah, he's making reasonable demands of his son, who needs to stop, causing all this trouble. I feel so
Like
old saying all that, but
yeah,
it's
but like
true.
a few times it wasn't Maurice, it was Fred
It
Savage.
was Fred
And
Savage.
he was like, "You wrecked your brother's room. There's food every like what the hell have you done here? You need to clean this up." Like
This movie had the classic 80s kid movie trope of kids like completely like building. Oh, I'm using like a lot. Ugh, let me try that again.
building like Rube Goldberg type machines.
Yeah, building machines. The kids in this movie are all building machines and mechanical gadgets and stuff in a way that, because they're doing it to trap the monsters. And if I was Daniel Stern and I saw that my kid had sawed all the legs off of the bed, yeah, I'd be pretty mad. I'd be pretty mad about that, and I would be demanding that Fred Savage go do chores for the rest of the day.
And it's the 80s, so like therapy wasn't a thing. But Fred Savage is a child who clearly needed therapy. And I'm going to bring
Sure, he's
this.
upset.
Well, yeah, but also, like, so one of the things Maurice does before he catches him is he puts his bike in the driveway so it gets run over by Daniel Stern at the beginning, which is kind of what initially sets off Daniel Stern's, like, really pissed off attitude. It's like the straw that breaks the
Totally
camel's
fair.
back. Yeah. And so later, when Fred Savage catches Maurice and he lets the sunlight in and it starts to kill him, Maurice is actively dying. And he's like, "I'm dying. I need to get under the bed. You need to let me under the bed." And Fred Savage is like, "No, you wrecked my bike." It's just like this kid is literally, I was like, Fred Savage's first murder is in my notes. You wrecked my bike, so prepare to die. I'm like,
He
you
was
are
just Fred
like,
Savage was making the right call in this moment. He needed to let he needed to let Maurice die because Maurice was very scary and an intruder in his home. And also then he was just melting. Like, how would you react to that if you caught a adult man in blue makeup in your house and then they started to melt? I don't know that I would have the wherewithal to get them back under the bed.
I think when someone is pleading with you for their life and actively saying, I'm dying and here's how you can save me, looking them in the eye and be like, I don't know, I liked my bike. Like, that is. That's not great. It's not.
Here's a moment. Here's a moment where I'll put Daniel Stern to task. So after that scene, Reese completely melts away and is now just a pile of semi-sentient clothing. Again, the clothing can still do stuff, which is freaky deaky. Daniel Stern busts in, sees Fred Savage like wrestling with a pile of clothes, and then gets mad at Fred Savage about, whatever he's mad about him for at that moment and saying, "Oh, you're going to be doing chores all day tomorrow." Like, you just caught your son with an adult man's clothes in
Like,
his room.
biker clothing. Clothing that is
Biker
clearly
clothing.
not yours. And you are the only grown
It's
man
like,
in this house.
you need to be way more concerned about this. It's
Yes.
like, this is concerning.
That was in my notes. Just,
It's like, Fred Savage is an adult man's entire wardrobe on the floor of his room. You need to do something about this right now, Daniel Stern.
and later, he shows up wearing the leather jacket from that, and I doubt it caused concern. Like,
Oh, sure.
I doubt it even gets recognized.
At that point, because I mean, that's the tail end of the movie after, everything is kind of worked out or whatever, and Maurice gives Fred Savage his jacket as a sweet moment. But yeah, I'm like, this kid is going to show back up at his house wearing
An adult man's leather jacket.
adult man's leather jacket, the same adult man's leather jacket that Daniel Stern should have noticed was on the floor of his son's room. You need to be very concerned, but we don't see that in the movie. I mean, again, we're jumping way ahead. I thought we're talking about this movie in order. Um, they finally escape the monster world from the weird. You're gonna need to watch this movie. They escape the monster world. The end of the movie, and they end up in California. They're clear across the country from where they started, and they call the parents to be like, "Oh, come pick us up. We're in Malibu." Yeah, when they go to pick the kids up, it's like, okay, so you've been traveling across state lines, and you're wearing this adult man's
Well,
leather
it's
jacket.
not even that they've been
You have to
traveling.
find this man.
So they, the parents saw at least Fred Savage at about 3 a.m.
Uh,
Sunrise is like 6:30. So for them to have gotten to California in that like 3 hour period, the Concorde jet didn't exist yet at that time. There is no physical way your children could have gotten from what I assume is Connecticut to
I think it's
California.
North Carolina. They're in North Carolina.
Are you sure?
If it was filmed in North Carolina, I checked.
Okay. Because when they say they're in Malibu, the parents are like, is that in Massachusetts? So I would think they were somewhere in New England.
Oh, maybe. Okay, so yeah, maybe it
And
was
I got
supposed to
the
be Connecticut.
impression that the city the dad was commuting to was New York.
Oh, okay, then yeah, it's probably Connecticut.
And he's got a 2 hour commute, which is a pretty Connecticut thing. But could be North Carolina. But anyway, they go from the East Coast to the West Coast in about 3 hours. So,
Well, wait a minute. I was trying to figure this out. So when they're initially leaving the underworld, when they're trying to escape from the big bad monster, they can't because sun comes up on the
okay,
East
so
Coast.
if the sun is coming up on the West Coast, it would have been 7 hours, not four
Yeah.
or whatever.
Still very improbable.
Yes.
You could catch a domestic flight 3 o'clock in the morning. The timing still wouldn't work out. You would have to.
You'd
Okay,
have
so
to
if they saw
get
him
to
at
an
3 a.m.,
airport, which is at least probably
you
an
had to
hour
get.
away. Get on a plane immediately, fly to the West Coast, which is like a 5 hour flight.
I
Get
mean, it could be 6 hours. It's like 5, 6 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, like with good that's the whole time. You don't have time to then leave the airport.
There's no way that it could work. You'd have
Um,
to get, yeah, you have to land and then like immediately get to that phone booth.
I would also like to say, so you can only come out of the monster world under a bed, and they come up
In
on
and
the
out is under bed.
huh?
Right, in and out is only through beds. The
They
sun is down.
they come up in Malibu, California, under a homeless man,
Sleeping on the beach.
unconscious on like a cot on the beach, and I'm like, that's just like that just seems degrading. Like,
Yeah. I guess they didn't want them to be like stuck in somebody's house and making a bunch of noise. I think also because they wanted to have that final shot of them escaping onto the beach.
I
But I was
know
like,
it's
oh, it's a
just
stretch. I remember thinking as a kid it was a stretch. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I thought as even a 4 or 5 year old when the movie came out.
yeah, like have it be something weird, like someone put their mattress on the curb or something, and like you came up under. You know what I mean? Just like,
I don't think it works unless somebody's sleeping on it.
well, I mean, he kept coming and going from his own bed, and no one was in his bed.
I let's talk about
The physics
let's
of
talk
this world.
about whole monster underworld because we haven't talked about that
So the
really.
monster world is super simplistic, and I thought that was perfect in its design and construction.
Hmm.
It
Terrifying, also.
Oh, it's terrifying, but it's like it's very labyrinth-like with like big staircases and ladders everywhere, but like that's it. It's just like ethereal blackness otherwise and dim lighting and just like rickety staircases being held up by like 2x4s and stuff. It has big Foot Clan HQ energy from the
Oh my god,
first.
I was going to say exactly that.
It has big Foot Clan headquarters energy. Which movie came out first?
Oh, we'd have to. It has to get down to the
1990.
month
This came
because
out first.
this came out before Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
Okay, so Foot Clan again. It too similar to be a coincidence.
Yes. I wonder if it
Too
was the
similar
same
to be a
studio,
coincidence.
and they were like, "Well, we still have all this stuff."
What was this? This was Vestron, I think. I'd have to look it up. I'm not
Yeah.
going to try to look that
It
up right now.
was it was too similar to not have been influenced. It's just impossible the parallels.
Oh, it was too similar to the Foot Clan in Ninja Turtles 1. I thought Sam Rockwell was going to show up.
He might have been one of the monsters. Apparently, Fred and Ben Savage's little sister played one of the monsters.
I was trying to figure out which one she was, but I don't know nearly enough about
I
their
mean,
little
there was
sister. I
enough
wasn't able to figure it out.
scenes where there was like 30 monsters just walking around that she could have just been one of them, you know?
Hmm. Must have been fun for her.
Yeah.
Also, side note, good on both Fred and Ben Savage for being successful adults after being child stars.
And they were good child stars. The child actors
Or
in this movie were very good.
yeah, my wife couldn't get over how cute Ben Savage was as a little kid. He
My
was really cute
my
with
wife
the
couldn't
hair.
either. She's like, "What happened to both of them?" Because they were really cute kids.
They were good-looking adults. I'm not gonna speak ill of Ben and Fred Savage's appearances.
I mean, you do you.
Fred Savage is a major successful television director.
I
That's
forgot
funny.
about
Like
that.
he is a big sitcom director. Any major sitcom Fred Savage has probably directed. He's like directed, I think, like full seasons of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He is really good at sitcom directing.
Good for him.
Yeah. Savage, I mean, he just had Girl Meets World, the Boy Meets World spinoff. He did um ran at least a few seasons. Good for all of them. Yeah, good for the Savages.
Yeah. Yeah, they all seemingly turned out pretty normal.
Anyway, we're talking about Underworld, the monster world under the bed. It's Foot Clan. It is run by Boy, is like the lead monster, and his right hand man is Snick. Snik. It's like the
Snick,
noise that wolf. Snick.
it's like the noise Wolverine's claws make.
Yeah.
He's
Snick
played
is
by another
terrifying.
big actor. Well, not big, but like he was in things like Groundhog Day and stuff. Uh,
Snick or boy?
Snick was in The Burbs. He was in Spaceballs. He was in Groundhog Day. He was in Scary Movie. Like he's in a ton of stuff. It was really weird.
And never a big character, but he's in a lot of things.
He's in a lot of big things as like that quirky, memorable side character.
He was. He died in 15.
Oh, sad.
Yeah. 62, died young. Boy, the main monster, the monster who runs the whole world. Again, another really freaky makeup job.
Oh, especially after he
Uh,
turns into a monster. Yeah. Actually,
After his
honestly,
like
I think it might have been worse before. I don't know. The before and after were both bad.
his human-ish face was really scary because you could tell it was supposed to look like he
It
was wearing a human mask over a monster face,
yes.
and that made it more scary. But that actor Frank Whaley, he's in a ton of stuff. Like, I think he was on some of the Netflix MCU shows.
He's in everything. He was in Pulp
He's in a ton
Fiction.
of stuff. He's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, I was going through his IMDb and I was just because I was like, what do I know you from? And it's just like again, everything. He's never like the lead. He's just in everything.
He's always like I feel like he's always a cop, a crooked
Mm-hmm.
cop.
Cop, doctor, like that type of a. He's got that face.
Real
Like
man and face.
I'm a man of authority.
Yeah, he works a lot. So good for the actor who played Boy. Yeah, and he somehow controlled the monster underworld. I don't know how he asserted control
They
over the
t-
monster world. They didn't really explain that.
they talk about Boy, but like you don't learn what his deal is at all until the end when he does like the temptation of Fred Savage, and then you know that's it. Like that's you don't know really who he is or what his deal is. You just know everyone makes sure to tell you he's in charge.
Yeah, I kind of liked that. Like, and I like that I don't know why he's in charge, but everybody listens to him. Even Snick. Snick being this like big, burly looking monster. Clearly, Snick is the toughest monster in the monster world. And Boy looks more slight, but he's so menacing in his own way. You never know why he's in charge. They don't try to explain it. It's just everybody knows Boy is in charge. This is his world, and you're all just trying to make your way in it.
I mean, a
I would
weird.
love to know what his story is, but I appreciate the fact that they didn't
I
flesh
think
him out. I think it makes him a lot scarier.
I think he's kind of like the Emperor in Star Wars to a degree.
Okay.
Because, like, in the original trilogy, like, Darth Vader was the big, scary, ominous presence. But you knew
Hmm.
he had a boss. And it was just like, who does Darth Vader report to and why? And, and like, in the
Oh yeah,
original.
because Grand Moff Tarkin was really in charge in the in A New Hope.
Yeah.
He was the bad guy.
And
Vader
then.
worked for him.
And then in Empire and Jedi, he clearly works for the Emperor. And you're like, what's his deal? Like, and you never know
I
in the
always
original trilogy. You never find out. You just get that he's in charge and needs to be defeated, kind of like Boy.
yeah. Okay, so Boy is the Darth Vader of
No, no, no.
this
Snick
world.
is the Darth Vader.
Nick is
Boy
the
is
Darth
the
Vader.
Emperor.
Boy is the Emperor. Okay, give you that. Sure. Do always wonder like what Darth Vader's day to day was on the Death Star when he wasn't actively like seeking out Luke Skywalker or doing stuff. Like imagine like what Darth Vader was doing before Princess Leia, like having to go after Princess Leia with the Death Star plans. He was probably just like walking around doing paperwork.
Yeah, there's a lot of like books about that, about how he's like actually really good friends with like Grand Moff Tarkin and stuff, and it's just like, really? Like, that's okay.
He had to have like buddies. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it, how lonely it would be.
I mean, Anakin,
I
when
was
he
just
was
thinking like,
Anakin, had buddies. I doubt he stopped having buddies. He just got rid of the old buddies.
I bet every now and then he was sitting there thinking like, should I call Obi-Wan and just like try and hash this out? No, it's been too long.
It would be weird.
Then he's like, oh, you just showed up at my house, running around with my kids. I kill you with my laser stick. And Obi-Wan was like, yeah, well, I'm not gonna give you the chance. I'm gonna just disappear. Darth Vader was like, I didn't know you could do that.
So,
That was my interpretation of A New Hope. Welcome.
go through our hot list of like thoughts since we're kind of through the plot now?
Thoughts on this movie? Yeah, sure.
All
Hit me
right.
with your little monster hot takes.
Good child actors. I'm sad that really just the Savages went through. I thought the little girl love interest person actually did a good job. And she,
Yeah, we didn't talk about her at all yet.
yeah, there's an entire character that we omitted. She did a good job. And
She's good.
just really like kind of like had like that. You look at her IMDb and she like made an appearance in like one episode of Judging Amy. You know what I mean? Like that's like she was a nanny in one episode of The OC, and I'm like, that's always just sad to see like it just never took off after having this really big movie. Um,
I hope she went on to do other things. 'Cause, yeah,
I'm
she has really spotty like film TV credits.
Yeah, she stopped acting completely in 2008, but it was really spotty up to that point. So I was really hoping that
Yeah.
like she just found something else good. But
You have to imagine the number of people who try and get into acting and the number of people who end up being successful working actors.
so a lot of swearing in this movie we've kind of covered. I think fuck is the only thing I didn't hear. There's at least 7 instances where they say shit.
He said
Um
shit a lot.
the kids say shit a lot. Everyone
Yeah,
does. Like it is just insane. Also, we forgot to mention the school bully is Buzz from Home
yeah,
Alone,
Buzz from Home Alone. Which
and that
I think, he's
I,
gotten himself into some trouble lately.
he's also a successful working actor though. He's in a lot of stuff. Um, but yeah,
Oh,
no,
he was in that new Home Alone movie that everybody hated.
yes, as Buzz. So this, so yeah, a lot of swearing. Kids. So there was a scene where they prank his character that even as a kid I thought was too much, and as an adult I feel the same.
Yes.
That's one of the scenes that's always just stuck in my head, and I'm like, it was too much. It was too much for a kids movie. So there's that. As an adult, so one of the whole points of this movie is the parents have moved them out of their home in the city to a country house fixer upper, to try and like save their family. And as an adult, I'm more into the great potential this house does have. The mom is right. This house has great potential.
Hmm.
I get like super distracted. Like there's this one scene where the dad's like yelling at the kids out the window because he can't find the remote, and I'm like, that's a giant window that opens. That's phenomenal. Like
Oh yeah, it was like a big picture
that's
window.
a huge picture window that opens. I was like, that's like a 7 foot window. That's really nice. And I'm like, I'm too old. I'm like, this house is great. Um, Fred Savage has a weird Rube Goldberg machine that he creates to catch the monster. And the master plan, his coup de grace, is that he's removed the doorknob on the door so the monster won't be able to get out of the room. And I'm like, Fred Savage, you have now effectively locked yourself in a room with an unknown monster.
It was such a bad
Such a
plan.
bad plan. You don't know that he's just like a hooligan. This is a good way to get eaten. Yeah, no, I really wanted to cover that. So in the beginning, it starts off with Fred Savage sneaking out of bed to make a peanut butter and onion sandwich.
Super gross.
And it never comes up again.
Yeah, his
It's
weird food habit.
It is such a weird, specific, flagrant detail. It is like literally the smoking gun that they introduce in the first act. Like you watch him make this disgusting image and then a sandwich and then pick it up and take a big bite out of it and it never comes back up.
Yeah, you feel like they make such a point to say like, "Oh, you're the only kid in the world who eats peanut butter and onion sandwiches." That's
Yes.
like, "Oh, okay, this is gonna play
This
into
will
like the climax of the movie or something." Something has there has to be a reason they made such a point
That's how they
about
find
it.
him later or something. They find a half-eaten peanut butter and onion sandwich. No, like there's just nothing. It never comes up.
Never comes up again.
Also, one of the things that I see, it was such a big thing in 70s and 80s movies, and you just never see it anymore. Is Fred Savage's bed is directly in the middle of his room.
Oh yeah.
Like that is such an inefficient use of space, and it's like that in like every one of his kids' movies. Like it's the same thing in The Princess Bride, and I'm like, I've I don't remember ever being in one of my friends' rooms growing up or anything where a bed was not like against a wall. Because who has the space for that? There's no space for that.
Yeah, not for a kid.
Not for a kid, but it's always like a Fred Savage, like 70s, 80s kid in a movie thing. It's like the bed's in the center of the room, and I'm like, probably not. But
That's definitely true in Princess Bride. I've not actually seen The Wizard. Need to watch The Wizard
I've
at
been
some point.
wanting
My wife
this.
tells me.
This really made me want to rewatch The Wizard. Um, for several reasons, but yeah, I'm in the same boat. And then, but this movie had such an 80s feel. Like it was
Very, very much so.
so 80s. Uh like just everything about it was a trip. Like every like even like them pulling out a flashlight, I was like, "Oh, we had that crappy flashlight." Like it
Big metal one.
no, it was the one that the girl had. It was like the red. It was a black flashlight with like a red, almost like tulip looking like head on it.
Mm.
Um, and they had the traditional kids opening from back then, where it starts for like the first 5 seconds in black and white, and then kind of fades to color,
Mhm.
which was just such a. Why was that a thing movies used to do? It was like this is a classy
Nostalgia.
movie
Oh, I
made
don't
by
know.
a real studio. Oh my god. So yeah, that's all my thoughts on Little Monsters. There's so much to unpack there.
Let me tell you. Here's something that caught my attention when I was researching this movie. Director of this film, Richard Greenberg. Let me read you a couple other movies that he worked on. He worked on Flash Gordon movie. He worked on Hudson Hawk. He worked on Death Becomes Her, one of my favorite, I think, underappreciated movies. He worked on Star Trek Nemesis. Not a very good movie. He worked on a lot of movies through the 80s up through the 2000s. And on these movies, he was the title designer. He made the credits of these movies. That's what he mostly did. That's what he was known for. Other than that, he had a couple of directing credits, but he was almost entirely like he's mostly credited as working on title sequences. And I don't remember this movie having particularly captivating title sequences, which I think is a little bit ironic.
Yeah,
But you just I would love to know just how that happens.
this was his
How do we get the
directorial debut.
hmm? This is his first directing credit on IMDb at least.
Insane. I hadn't even noticed that. He actually apparently is a visual effects consultant as well.
Yeah, he worked on Phantoms. Phantoms is scary as hell. Phantoms is
Phantoms, Lady Hawk, Predator, which could explain why there was such good special effects for this movie, as we've discussed, potentially too good for what this was.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's like, oh, we'll get this guy. He does visual effects work. Doesn't even seem like what he did was like makeup or
He was a
like
designer and a
practical effects work. He was.
consultant and opticals, maybe because of all the optics they wanted to do for like the other world.
Oh no! I thought that was really funny. I was like, oh, he's mostly credited as having produced title sequences, and here you are is having had directed Little Monsters.
And that was it. Like
Uh,
he did one episode of Tales from the Crypt a year later and then a documentary in 2003. That's his
and then
entire directing oeuvre. Like Little Monsters was a successful movie. How did he never what happened?
was it
He didn't stop
was
working. He just went back to visual effects and title design.
I mean, I guess if you like where you are, I don't know how much money this movie made. I'm gonna look. Grossed $793,000 worldwide.
What did
Oh
it
darn!
what did it
It had to have cost a
cost?
few $1 million to make.
Was this a flop?
Budget
I feel
was.
like this was a big movie.
I don't think it was. I think it might have been the production company that put it together went out of business and then it was sold and then just had a very, very limited release. There's no way that it was a wide release and made less than $1 million. That doesn't, even in 1989, that doesn't happen.
I have the special edition collector's DVD with like a million special features, anniversary edition, like also opening weekend it made $254,000. How did it make a third of its money in the opening weekend?
Here we go. The film was financed. I'm just reading off of Wikipedia. We'll probably have to cut this. Film was financed by Vestron Pictures, along with a few other films. The distribution rights were sold to MGM after Vestron went bankrupt. Okay, so that's what it was. It was the company that put it together went bankrupt. It had a $7 million budget. Vestron goes out of business. It gets sold off to MGM, and they just release it to a limited audience, like probably not even bothering to try and get their money back.
Oh my god. I don't know how like they maybe they made their money back in like rentals?
Yeah, then they put it out on VHS and had it rented out.
Cuz I feel like
Um,
this was a big VHS thing. Like every kid I knew watched this movie
Everybody saw
growing
this
up.
movie.
They have to have made bank on the back end DVD rentals, like VHS clearly. But like I don't know, man. Maybe that's why he never worked again, but not his fault. Solid movie.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap up our thoughts on this movie. I think
Okay, yeah, we've squeezed as much as we should out
we've
of this
squeezed all the
movie.
juice out of Little Monsters.
Okay, what if?
Scary as an adult, I would not show it to
Yeah,
my kid.
I don't know at what point I would be comfortable showing this to my kid that he would still care about it.
Yeah,
You know what
that's
I
fair.
mean? Like by time I feel like this should have been PG-13. It's just that no one that age wants to watch it. So I don't know who this movie is for. I don't know how it's not
Yeah.
PG 13. I think it should be PG 13. I don't think my kid's going to like this at the age of 13.
No, I don't think it is a product of its time. I don't think it holds up. I don't think um kids today would enjoy it the way that we did. If for me it's a nostalgia thing. It's okay for people who grow up with it. Like if you grew up and you love this movie,
Give it a
definitely give
watch.
it a rewatch. But I would not try to introduce my kid to it. I think there's too much stuff in it that we now know that has aged poorly. I'm sounding like just a curmudgeonly old man. I That I don't think a kid today would get the same enjoyment out of it that we got out of it when we were kids.
Also, on like a weird side note, Howie Mandel has like that weird thing where you can't touch him and he's severely germophobic and like he keeps like 3 feet away from everyone and stuff.
Hmm?
This clearly predates that and it's really weird to watch. Because he's like high fiving everyone, hugging everyone, picking people up. Like, and it's just like the Howie Mandel that we know today is like, please, he was keeping 6 feet pre pandemic. Like he
Yeah.
is
Don't touch Howie Mandel. He
you don't
doesn't want you to touch him.
yeah, but in this one he is just like Mr. Touchy Feely and I was like this is so is this the movie that broke Howie Mandel?
Well, I think that's one of those things that it can develop over time.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know.
absolutely. It was weird knowing that I know two things about Howie Mandel. I know he's Maurice in Little Monsters and I know he's like
It's
severely
Bobby on Bobby's World.
yes, that too. I don't know how he was like such a big child star, but
Deal or no deal?
yeah, so
All right.
yeah. All right. I'm going to call it. This is a long one. I thought it was going to be a short one because we just did one movie instead of like 5 episodes, but here we are. I, I had a
All
lot of
right.
thoughts.
Well, check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We are RTSpiritsPod. If you have anything you think we should cover, we'd love to hear it. If you have any thoughts on the film Little Monsters, tell us. We'd love to hear them.
Thank you for joining us. This is Steve,
I'm Sam. Catch you
and
next time.
we'll catch you next week.